Welcome back to the Tommy Stone Show, everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today we have a huge episode. We're going to be tackling a massive problem, the housing crisis in America. But as always, if you're not following me on TikTok and Instagram, go follow and find all that short form content right there at the Tommy Stone Show. Same handle, same everything. Go follow me. I'd really appreciate it. We're trying to grow everything. But as always, if you're first time watching this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Tommy Stone Show and give me a like to help promote this video. I'm really trying to grow it. But without further ado, let's get into how to fix the housing crisis in America. So the first caveat and the first way that we have to look at the current housing crisis in America is, why do we have it? And I know that's kind of a stupid question, and it might seem kind of counterintuitive for where we want to start, but a lot of people don't understand why we already have a housing crisis. And the big reason is because we don't have enough houses or areas for people to live. And again, this might seem a little bit obvious, but the real reason for it is actually because we have very, very, very strict zoning laws in almost every single major city in America. Right now, I believe 75% of normal residential land is currently zoned only for single-family homes. And again, this might seem, why is this a big issue? Because if we want people to start moving into our cities and we need to start increasing the populations in our cities, what we need to do is creating cheap, affordable land. And most of the time, people can't afford just to outright buy a home. What they can afford, though, are monthly rent payments. And that's something that we have to not only create more opportunity and more housing for, but we need to lower rent prices in cities right now, instead of, again, sucking up all the supply and constantly creating a demand vacuum where price is always going to increase because we have no supply to give to people who want to move into cities. So again, the first thing that we have to do is go into these cities and essentially abolish all single-family only zoning and allow for these single-family homes and allow for contractors to build out massive apartments and turn old single-family homes into duplexes, triplexes, or even now apartment buildings. That would be a huge incentive piece for construction to come back into cities, and that's what we need. We need to get rid of these single-family zoning laws. Again, on top of that, when you go specifically into cities, most cities literally have laws banning apartments. I believe it's a 70% of residential land in major American cities literally has laws that are banning to be able to build apartments, which is absolutely ridiculous. What we've seen right now is a couple cities have actually taken up what I just said. Minneapolis is one, Cincinnati is another, and Austin. These three cities, what they did is essentially ban all single-family only zoning, and they made it so anybody can come and build an apartment anywhere near their downtown areas. And what we've seen is not only a huge amount of people moving to Austin specifically. Again, Texas is one of the fastest growing states. Houston is another city that has adopted these type of policies, but really Austin did it the best. They saw rent prices go down dramatically. I believe Minneapolis didn't do it at such a wide scale effect, but essentially what they did is they incentivized apartment building, and we saw rent prices decrease 5%, I believe, since 2020. And that is huge because all around the country since the pandemic, rent prices have literally almost doubled in some neighborhoods, which is absolutely insane. So that is a huge win. And again, most of that was just, again, by trying to find a way to incentivize and get rid of all of the red tape around building new apartments. The second aspect of this, like I said before, is that red tape aspect. Right now, you need a ton of permits, not only to build a multifamily building, but just to get it properly zoned and regulated and essentially fit up to code for every single city. Every single city has a bunch of different rules for how you have to build the interiors, the exteriors, your roofing, everything. I believe all this needs to be cut. These are huge barriers to entrance, not only for smaller construction firms and smaller mom and pop people who want to own rental buildings, but this is essentially prohibiting people from building apartment buildings in a lot of states. For California, for instance, in some cases, it takes over 2 years to get the necessary permits just to start construction. So if you want to build a multifamily project in California, you have to probably wait 5 years before you can start even laying down before you can even ink your first lease, which is absolutely insane. That means you have to be able to pay for all your land costs, all of the property taxes, all of the insurances, all of the construction for 5 years before you can get one renter inside your building. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. That has to go. I'm from Chicago, and specifically with Chicago, the city itself has a ton of different red tape that goes on top of the county's red tape, that goes on top of the state's red tape, that goes also on top of your local neighborhood red tape. And again, we're not even talking about HOAs yet. So again, in some cases, sorry guys, you're seeing 5 different layers of red tape just to build one multifamily apartment. That is insane. Our cities need to slash all of this red tape. We need to get rid of all of the barriers to entry and make it realistic to build again. And the final piece of the puzzle is making it cheap to build these homes. Again, you can get rid of all of the red tape, all of the zoning regulations in all of these cities, but if it isn't cheap to build homes, and this is for all for nothing, because nobody's going to do it then. Since the start of 2025, the price of home materials has risen 3% every single month. That means if you started building your house in 2025, that means it costs you right now, again, it's been about 17 months since the start of 2025. That means you're paying nearly 50% more if you decided to wait till today than building your home just a year and a half ago. That is insane. That doesn't even make sense. In a year and a half, the price of home materials going up nearly 50%. I mean, that is atrocious. I mean, we need to fix this. And I think a big reason for it, and a lot of things that people aren't talking about, is the tariffs specifically on these type of goods. We need to subsidize these goods. We need to make it cheaper than ever on a federal level to build homes in America. And I believe states and cities also have a duty to try and subsidize home building as much as they can. Specifically like Chicago. Chicago right now has less than 2.5 million people, I believe, or less than 2.7 million people. It's between that range, 2.7 and 2.5 million people. We used to have over 3 million people in the city. We need to get that number right back to 3 million to start paying off all the debts that we have, specifically again in Chicago. But when you look at it from a bigger point of view, when you pull it again out to California, when you don't get rid of these zoning regulations, you don't get rid of the red tape, you don't get rid of the high costs of building, all of a sudden you have a complete stagnation of supply in the market. And that means that demand will infinitely build up over time. And again, as we have more and more people coming to this country through immigration, we have more and more people giving birth, that is going to be a huge issue. If America hits 450 million people and we have not solved this issue, all of a sudden it's not just a crisis, we're going to have people literally dying. I mean, this could get very, very, very severe very quickly in the next coming generation. And I believe the only way to get around this is, again, by making it so any person can build a home in America. We need to make it cheaper. We need to get rid of all of the red tape and all of the zoning regulations. That is my 3-part plan. And I guess the final piece of the puzzle, one that I can't necessarily control, and sadly many of us can't control, are just interest rates in general. Right now, it is so expensive to borrow money, to get a mortgage from a bank. It is just insanely expensive to borrow money from any sort of person right now. And I believe that's because of the Federal Reserve. We've had super, super high interest rates for a very long time. Trump is obviously now going to put in Kevin Warsh. He's replacing Jerome Powell. So that's going to really shake up interest rates and shake up the entire American economy. I'm not sure for the best or for the worst. It is way too early to tell, and anybody telling you differently has no idea what's going on, and they're just telling you nonsense. But really, the real key cause of why we have a housing crisis in America is because it is just so expensive to borrow money in any sort of the way. If we were to lower the interest rates in America, this would make all the key points of my plan. Again, getting rid of the zoning, getting rid of red tape, and making it cheaper to borrow and getting materials to build homes in America. That all really rests upon the fact that if we get a lower interest rate from the Fed, then all this can be realistic. But until we get lower interest rates from the Fed, I really don't see this happening. And honestly, I'm worried if Kevin Warsh comes in and starts slashing rates too quickly. Jerome Powell has literally had years to slowly get this rate down, and he just has refused to. And again, if we come in to start slashing rates right off the bat like crazy, who knows what happens with that type of volatility. We don't want volatility in our economy like that, and I hope Kevin Warsh is smart enough not to push for something like that and not to get massive rate cuts right off the bat, because we need to be stable and controlled about this. And while that has been Jerome Powell's thesis, again, I believe he has been way too slow on all measures of getting interest rates back to where they need to be. It is way too expensive to borrow money. Right now, just to be a first-time borrower, we're getting charged 15 to 20% interest rates. Again, that is for certain automotive loans. Again, that's pretty predatory, and I believe that we should be capping that type of interest rates on automobiles, unless, again, you have no income, you have no credit score, then I guess it makes sense because you are a risk to the lender. But for normal people, for normal Gen Zers, it is so expensive to borrow, and that is absolute nonsense. We need to find ways to make it cheaper to borrow, and I believe that all starts at the federal level. So until we find out how to really lower interest rates on the federal level and get rid of all zoning and red tape in our cities, we're going to continue seeing a housing crisis. But that is where me and you can really make a difference. Finding representatives to get into our state constitutions, get into and make amendments from the state level, that is what is most important. Because right now in states like Illinois and California, lots of the things that I'm saying, these zoning regulations, boomers have locked them down in the state constitutions. And we need young representatives who want real change to get in there and make amendments happen. That is what is most important right now. I believe there's nothing more important than being a young Gen Zer than going out in your community. If you are not going to be the leader yourself, finding a leader who is going to change these things for the best and not giving in to the old system and allowing for Gen Z to have to essentially suffer for the crimes and essentially suffer for the fruits of what the other generations got before us. They got great housing prices, they got all the assets, they got a great life, and we're the ones who are now essentially eating the dust and having to suck up all the crumbs of what they got. And that is nonsense. We deserve the same seat at the table, and I believe that we can do it together, but it all starts by finding those representatives at a state level to change these constitutions. Get rid of these terrible zoning laws that has essentially locked wealth into the boomers' hands forever until they want to sell. Get our interest rates back down below 4%, below 3%, so people who have mortgages don't feel like if they sell their house right now, they're essentially just doing a doomsday sell to get a super terrible interest rate. Where again, if you have an interest rate from 30 years ago, you're below 3-4%. Nowadays, you can't get a mortgage for less than 5%. So again, there's a huge discrepancy between the interest rates that people have right now with owning homes and what Gen Z is getting. And we need to fix that. And again, that's going to take a long, long time, but it all starts at the state level. So please get out, go vote. If you don't find a representative in your area who wants to make the changes that I'm saying and that you believe in, then you have to go be the leader. But again, thank you all so much for watching the Tommy Stone Show. I hope I'm inspiring you at least just a little bit to understand that this is a fixable problem, and we can't just keep dumping it off to the next generation like the generations before us, because for us, it's getting to a point where we might not be able to afford a home until we're 40 or 50, and I certainly don't want to live in a world where I'm just renting my entire life. So again, thank you all for watching the Tommy Stone Show today. If you have not already, please go follow my TikTok, my Instagram, and as always, subscribe to the Tommy Stone Show on YouTube. I really appreciate your time, and comment down below if you agree or disagree with anything I said. I love just reading into these comments. Again, thank you guys all. Have a fantastic, fantastic day.